this is Ruth Fazal again, and we're now coming to the sixth portion of me talking a little about the text and even some of the stories of the journey of the performances of Oratorio Terezin. But we're coming really now to a very central part as we consider what the prophet is singing about. He's singing about a suffering servant who will take the burdens of the nation upon himself. And, you know, I guess I thought as a Christian, and I knew if we're talking about suffering, this is probably the first place that many of us would go as we're thinking about how Yeshua took the sin, my sin, our sin, the sin of the whole world upon himself. And as we think about that, we maybe don't see the relevance, the real relevance to the Jewish people in the same way. And as I started reading it and setting it to music, I really began to see that the description of this suffering servant sounds very much like the plight of the Jewish people during the time of the Holocaust. And so I saw this complete identification, God's complete identification with his people. And so, yes, I have been questioned about this. Interestingly enough, I think after the first performance in Toronto, some friends of mine were sitting in the audience, and they happened to be sitting next to a Jewish couple. I don't think a particularly religious Jewish couple, but they turned to my friends and they said, "Why are there portions of the New Testament in this piece?" And they said to them, "Well, there aren't any portions of the New Testament." And then we realized that what they were referring to was this passage, Isaiah 53. It's such a passage that I didn't know when I inserted it into the oratorio. I didn't know that there's quite a thing about this passage. As far as Jewish people are concerned, it's been used in history as a way to try and prove, convince, cajole the Jewish people to believe that Yeshua is the Mashiach, that he's the Messiah. And that was not my intention. My intention was to bring, in a sense, a part of my own journey and my own faith as a Christian, to insert that. But then I realized when I was doing it, oh, wow, well, yes, definitely I can see this is about Yeshua. I see that. But many will not. And then I see how similar the description sounds of this suffering servant, how similar it sounds to the plight of the Jewish people during the time of the Holocaust. And so I really want it to be there. I don't feel in any way that it shouldn't be there. But I do really hope and pray that it is never seen as a way of trying to prove something, because I'm not. I'm merely bringing the scriptures and maybe one of the chapters in the whole of the Bible that most poignantly talks about the suffering, and we could say the suffering of God himself. And so this particular passage begins with the prophet. The prophet is singing, "Who has believed what we have heard, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a shoot out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look on him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by all, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief." Now, what I realized as I'm coming to this chapter, to this portion, is that I wanted to insert the voices of the children within it. And the voices of the children, I feel, represent the voice that somehow identifies with suffering. And I'm thinking one of the deepest things that children feel as they're growing up and can be a great place of suffering and pain for them is rejection. And so, as it says here in Isaiah 53, as one from whom others hide their faces. That sense of rejection that I gave to the voices of the children. So there is this dialogue that's happening really between the prophet, who's telling the situation, describing it, and then the children, as they say, as one from whom others hide their faces. And then the prophet says, he was despised and we held him of no account. And then the whole of the choir, surely he's borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God and afflicted. And then the prophet continues, but he was buried, bruised. He was bruised for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. And then the choir sing again, all we like sheep have gone astray, each one of us to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Keep bearing in mind the role of God's people Israel, or even Israel himself, of Jacob, as we think of this depiction of suffering. And the prophet sings, he was despised and he was afflicted. And the children sing, yet he did not open his mouth. And the prophet sings, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter. And the children sing, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent. The prophet sings, so he did not open his mouth. And then the choir, by a perversion of justice he was taken away. The prophet sings, who could have imagined his future? For he was cut off from the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. And then I inserted something from Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? The reason I inserted this here is because in many ways, if we think of that question, that is so much a question that is central to the experience and to the response to the Holocaust. God, where are you? Why have you forsaken me? And we're told that many Jewish people, as they were taken to the gas chambers, as they went there, they would recite this psalm. And interestingly enough, it was this psalm that Jesus took these words when he hung on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Was this him totally identifying with his own people? Could he foresee, could he know the tragedy, the absolute tragedy and horror that was going to befall his people? And I gave this to the voice of God and to the children. And I actually give the children the words, my God, why have you forsaken me? They sing it in a way that is faulting. It's faltering. It's not just a straightforward statement. My God, why have you forsaken me? And then after each statement, my God, or each question, as it were, within that, you hear God groaning you hear him sighing, my God. And you hear it. And Hugh Friday does this so beautifully. Well, really, really so special. And I think to sing it, you really have to know this God that is being sung about. And this is certainly true of Hugh. My God, why have you forsaken me? Maybe one of the most moving moments in the whole of the oratorio. It's pathos in many ways. It's so still. It's like, I remember every time we performed it, wherever we were, you could hear a pin drop in the auditorium. So quiet. And then, after it all, the prophet sings, yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him with pain. The righteous one, my servant, shall make many righteous, and he shall bear their sin. So this is Isaiah 53, right in the middle, or a little more 2/3 of the way through the piece. Very central to the whole piece and very important. I think the oratorio without this would be almost cheap. I don't know if you can understand what I'm trying to say, but these portions of scripture, these what we might call messianic portions of scripture, need to be read, need to be faced, need to be acknowledged. But as we as Christians, as we hear again these words of Isaiah 53, I really believe that we need to take on board there's something deeper even here than how we might have perceived it to be purely a description of the death of Yeshua. So I leave you with that, and I just say, be blessed, and as you listen to it, allow the Lord to touch your heart, to really touch your heart with all that he wants to put in there as he gives you a deeper love and a greater heart for his people, Israel. This is the passage to find that. Bless you all, and I'll see you on the next portion.
Has believed what we have heard, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by all, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. He was despised, and we held him of no account. But he was bruised for our transgression, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. For we like sheep have gone astray, each one of us to our own way. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was despised, and he was afflicted. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, so he did not open his mouth. By a perversion of justice, he was taken away. Who could have imagined his future? Shall make many righteous